Ever feel like you're your own biggest obstacle? That there's an invisible wall between you and the life you're supposed to be living? What if the problem isn't a lack of opportunity, but the 7 lies you tell yourself every single day? I'm not here with empty motivation that disappears when you close this tab. I'm here because between the person you are and the person you know you could be, there's a cemetery of abandoned dreams, and you've been visiting the gravesite daily. The psychologist Carl Jung dedicated his career to studying what he named the shadow self, the parts of us we deny. But here's what most overlook. We aren't running from our darkness. We're fleeing from our own light. We're afraid of our own capacity because capability brings responsibility. And responsibility means the blame game is over. Let's be honest, no one discusses the strange relief of surrender. When you quit trying, you avoid failure. When you abandon your dreams, you sidestep disappointment. Accepting your circumstances feels like rest, and that rest is so soothing you confuse it for peace. But it's not peace. It's resignation in disguise. Consider this. You've expended more energy justifying why you can't than it would have taken to see if you could. You've dedicated more time listing your limitations than exploring your abilities. You've used more creativity building cages than it would take to walk free. The numbers don't lie. You don't lack resources. You lack resolve. In physics, there's a principle called inertia. An object at rest stays at rest unless an external force moves it. But the brutal truth about human inertia, the external force that must move you is you. You are both the immovable object and the unstoppable force, and you've been choosing to stay stuck. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing for publication. He was reminding himself. Even emperors need to remember that the only barrier to action is their own mind's consent. Right now, there are 7 specific lies you're telling yourself about why your life remains the same. Not guesses, not maybes, certainties. These are the exact patterns that keep people going in circles for decades, wondering why nothing changes. I will show you each one, not to make you feel criticized, but so you finally see the prison you built and understand you hold the key. Before we continue, if you're ready to break this cycle, do 3 things. Hit like to cement your commitment. Comment with the words, "No more excuses." And share this with one person who recognizes this same struggle. Subscribe, because we're creating a space where excuses end and lives truly begin. Are you addicted to your own potential? Does the idea of success feel safer than the reality? This first lie is why so many talented people never begin. Lie number 1. Potential without proof is just fantasy. The Dunning-Kruger effect reveals something telling. Incompetent people overestimate their skills, while the highly competent underestimate theirs. But there's a third group no one discusses. People obsessed with their potential who refuse to test it. They live in the comforting space of "I could if I wanted to," never realizing that untested potential is just a polished form of self-deception. You love discussing what you will do. You have detailed plans, visions, and ideas. You can describe your future business, your transformed body, or the book you'll write with vivid clarity. You are fluent in the language of someday. But here's your secret addiction. Potential feels better than proof. As long as it stays in your head, it remains perfect. The business can't fail if it never launches. The book can't be rejected if it's never written. This is why you research endlessly but never begin. You plan meticulously but never execute. You wait for perfect clarity before taking imperfect action. You're not preparing, you're hiding. You're not being strategic, you're being scared. And you've dressed that fear in the respectable clothing of being thorough. Meanwhile, someone with half your talent but twice your courage just launched the imperfect version of what you've been perfecting in your mind. They're getting real feedback while you collect imaginary praise. They're learning what works while you theorize. They're building proof while you protect potential. The chasm between who you think you are and who you actually are widens every day you avoid testing yourself. That gap fills with fantasy, a comfortable simulation until you realize you're not living your real life. You don't need another course, another book, or more time to think. You need to do something, anything, that produces a measurable result. Not a feeling, not a plan. A result. Because results are the only truth that matters. Start messy, start small, start scared. But start with something that creates evidence of your existence beyond your imagination. Stop being a museum of unrealized potential and become a laboratory of tested capability. Lie number 2. Being busy doesn't mean moving forward. Historian Cyril Northcote Parkinson identified Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available. But there's a corollary. Busy work expands to fill the space where real work should be. We allow this because being busy feels productive, even when it produces nothing. You're in constant motion. Your calendar is packed. Your to-do list is long. Motion feels like progress, so you've convinced yourself you're advancing. But are you actually getting closer to your goals, or just traveling in increasingly complex circles? Review your last month. How much of your activity genuinely moved you toward what matters? How much was just organizational theater? Rearranging your workspace, reorganizing files, researching tools, comparing options. How much time did you spend getting ready to get ready? This is the sophisticated trap. You're not lazy. You're actively engaged in everything except the one thing that would change your situation. You're watering leaves instead of roots. The entrepreneur designs a perfect logo for months, but never speaks to a customer. The writer sets up a flawless writing environment, but never writes a paragraph. The person wanting to get healthy researches every diet, but never breaks a sweat. They're all moving. None are progressing. Here's the difference. Progress is measurable and uncomfortable. Motion is visible and comfortable. Progress requires facing your inadequacy. Motion lets you feel productive without vulnerability. Progress risks failure. Motion maintains the illusion of momentum. You attend workshops, but don't implement. You consume content, but don't create. You network, but don't build. You learn, but don't apply. You choose education over execution because being a student feels safer than being judged as a practitioner. The brutal question: if you removed all activity that doesn't directly produce results, what would remain? How much of your work is actually work? And how much is elaborate avoidance disguised as productivity? The hours you spend in motion, without progress, are hours you steal from your own future. Stop counting completed tasks and start counting created outcomes. Stop measuring how busy you are and start measuring how much closer you are to what matters. The scoreboard doesn't care how hard you worked. It only shows if you scored. Is your own identity the very thing holding you back? This next lie traps more people than any lack of skill. Lie number 3. Your past self doesn't own your future. Neuroscientists describe an interpreter in our brains, a part that constantly creates narratives to explain our behavior, even when they're fiction. We aren't discovering who we are. We're constantly authoring who we are. And most of us keep writing the same chapter repeatedly. You say, "I'm not a morning person," or "I'm bad with money," as if these are genetic facts. They're not. They're sentences you once said that became comfortable. So you repeated them until they hardened into identity. Identity is your most sophisticated excuse because it doesn't sound like one. Saying "I can't do that, it's not who I am," sounds like self-awareness. It sounds honest. But you're using past behavior as a prison for future possibility. Every addiction recovery program knows this secret. You can't change behavior until you change identity. An alcoholic who says, "I'm trying not to drink," still identifies as a drinker. Someone who says, "I don't drink," has changed their identity. Behavior follows identity. You've been running the same personality software so long you think it's your operating system. It's not. It's just a program you got used to. I'm shy means you've practiced shyness so long it feels natural. I'm not disciplined means you haven't built discipline because you keep choosing immediate comfort. The problem isn't your identity. It's that you think it's permanent. You've confused familiarity with fate. You've mistaken patterns for personality. Every day you introduce yourself with limiting labels. You sign a contract to stay exactly who you've been. But here's what most never realize. You can just stop. You can stop telling that story. You can stop reinforcing that identity. You can wake up tomorrow and decide the person you were yesterday doesn't get a vote on who you are today. Not through affirmations, but through different actions that create different evidence. Identity isn't what you believe about yourself. It's what you prove through behavior. Want to be disciplined? Stop saying you'll be disciplined and just do one disciplined thing, then another. Do it enough, and your brain stops seeing it as an exception and starts seeing it as evidence. Evidence becomes a pattern. Pattern becomes identity. The story you tell about yourself isn't protecting you. It's limiting you. Every time you use, "I'm just," or "I've always been," you're building walls disguised as descriptions. Stop introducing yourself using your limitations as credentials. Stop defending your weaknesses as if they're features. Stop narrating your life with the same tired character description and start writing a new story through different choices. Lie number 4. Deciding once beats thinking forever. Research in psychology confirms that too many options paralyzes us. But the deeper issue is we've turned simple decisions into endless debates. We keep every door open because closing one feels like a loss, not realizing that keeping everything open means going nowhere. Watch how you make decisions. You don't make them. You entertain them. You consider, weigh, and revisit them. You keep possibilities warm while never committing to any as realities. You treat your life like a restaurant menu you're constantly reviewing but never ordering from. I'm thinking about starting that business. Translation: I'm keeping it as an option while doing nothing. I might go back to school. Translation: I like the idea more than the commitment. I should probably start working out. Translation: I've created the illusion of intention without the substance of decision. Real decisions don't sound like maybe. They don't live in the future tense. They don't have escape clauses. Real decisions sound like, I am doing this. Present tense. Declarative. Done. You know why you can't commit? Because commitment means accountability. Once you declare something, you're responsible for whether it happens. But as long as you are considering it, you can never fail because you never really tried. You've discovered the perfect protection from disappointment. Perpetual deliberation. Here's what happens when you treat decisions like negotiations. Nothing. Time passes. Opportunities fade. Others who made actual decisions lap you while you're still weighing options. You look back and realize you didn't choose not to do it. You just never chose to do it, which produces the same result, but lets you avoid responsibility. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Every day you spend deliberating is a day you're not living. Every hour weighing options is an hour you're not building. The successful entrepreneur didn't have more certainty than you. They decided and dealt with consequences. The person in a great relationship didn't have guarantees. They committed and built from there. Stop conducting feasibility studies on your own life. Stop running cost-benefit analyses on whether you should try. Make a decision, a real one. Then honor it with action instead of reconsidering it with doubt. Your indecision isn't careful planning. It's camouflage cowardice. Your need to keep options open isn't strategic flexibility. It's commitment phobia. Decide, then move. A decision without action is just a wish with delusions of grandeur. Are you waiting for a sign, for permission, for a savior? This next lie might be the most painful one to confront. Lie number 5. Nobody's coming to save you. Research on learned helplessness found that even when obstacles are removed, subjects conditioned to believe they can escape often won't even try. They've internalized their limitations so deeply they need permission to be free, never realizing that needing permission is the cage itself. You're waiting for someone to tell you it's okay, to validate your readiness, to grant you access, to say, yes, you can do this. You're standing at unlocked doors, waiting for someone to hand you a key you don't need. Who are you waiting for? A boss to recognize your talent? A partner to support your dream? A parent to finally approve? A friend to validate your decision? Society to give you clearance? The universe to send a sign? You've turned your life into an endless waiting room, sitting patiently for your name to be called by someone who isn't coming. The uncomfortable truth: nobody is coming to give you permission, not because they don't care, but because they're not responsible for your life. Not because they don't believe in you, but because their belief isn't required for your action. You learned this permission-seeking behavior young. You raised your hand and waited to be called on. You asked to use the bathroom. You needed signatures and approvals. You internalized that everything requires external permission. But you're not in school anymore. There is no teacher, no principal, no authority figure whose approval you need to chase your dreams, start your business, change your career, or live your life. The person who started the company you admire didn't wait for permission. They started. The artist whose work moves you didn't wait for validation. They created. They understood something you're still learning. Permission is a cage we lock ourselves in while holding the key. What's wild? The people you're waiting for are waiting too. They're waiting for someone to validate them. You're waiting for permission from people who haven't given themselves permission either. Epictetus understood this. No man is free who is not master of himself. You're enslaved to others' opinions, chained to their validation. And the cruelest part? They didn't put you there. You did. Stop asking if you can and start declaring that you will. Stop seeking validation and start creating value. Stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. Stop looking for green lights and become your own green light. The permission you seek doesn't exist outside you. It only exists inside. The moment you give it to yourself, you'll realize you've had it all along. You just needed to stop asking and start acting. Lie number 6, knowing without doing is worthless. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote that there are 2 ways to be fooled: to believe what isn't true, and to refuse to believe what is true. But there's a third way: to understand the truth completely and do absolutely nothing about it. You know what you need to do. Don't pretend you don't. You've read the books, watched the videos, listened to the podcasts. You've consumed enough information to transform 10 lives, yet your one life remains unchanged. You're not ignorant. You're informed and inactive, which is worse. Information has become your drug. It gives you the feeling of being productive without the discomfort of producing anything. You finish a book on wealth and feel wealthy momentarily. You complete a fitness course and feel fit briefly. Then the feeling fades, and instead of acting, you consume more information for another hit. This is the trap of intellectual understanding without embodied action. You think knowing equals doing. You believe awareness creates change. But your life isn't a math problem that solves itself once you understand the equation. It's a canvas that stays blank until you pick up the brush. What separates people who transform from those who just know about transformation? Implementation. Not perfect implementation, just messy, imperfect, stumbling forward action based on what they know. They don't wait to understand everything. They act on what they understand now and learn the rest by doing. You've turned learning into a hiding place. As long as you're still learning, you don't have to perform. As long as you're preparing, you don't have to produce. But this game has a shelf life, and it's expiring fast. The irony is brutal. The information you needed to change your life, you had it years ago. Everything since has been intellectual stalling. You don't need more knowledge. You need the courage to apply the knowledge you already have. Stop going back to the bookstore when you haven't implemented what's on your shelf. Stop enrolling in new courses when you haven't completed the last ones. Stop searching for better information when you haven't used the good information you already possess. You're not lacking wisdom, you're lacking willingness. The gap between what you know and what you do is where your life is disappearing. Every day that gap exists, you prove that information without implementation is just entertainment. Take one thing you learned this year, one principle, one strategy, and actually live it for 30 days. Not learn more about it. Live it, breathe it, make it real through action. Because understanding that never becomes behavior is just sophisticated ignorance. Is your comfort zone actually a danger zone? This final lie is the silent killer of dreams and the source of that quiet desperation so many feel. Lie number 7. Comfort is killing your spirit. Existential psychologist Rollo May studied what he called the anxiety of non-being, the feeling you're not actually living, just existing. His conclusion was devastating. We don't fear death as much as we fear living without meaning. Yet we consistently choose comfort over meaning, then suffer the emptiness that choice creates. Look at your life. How many daily decisions are designed to avoid discomfort? You avoid the difficult conversation because it might be awkward. You don't pursue the opportunity because it's uncertain. You stay in the wrong relationship to avoid loneliness. You don't start the venture for fear of embarrassment. Your entire life has become an elaborate structure built around one principle: avoid discomfort at all costs. And it's working. You're comfortable. You have a comfortable bed, a comfortable job, comfortable relationships, comfortable hobbies. Everything is comfortable. So why do you feel like you're suffocating? Because humans aren't designed for comfort. We're designed for challenge, for growth, for struggle that leads somewhere. When you remove all friction, you don't create peace, you create numbness. You don't find happiness, you find hollowness. That feeling you can't name, that quiet desperation, that vague dissatisfaction. That's not depression. That's your soul screaming that you're wasting your life playing it safe. That's your potential suffocating under the weight of your comfort. Every great feeling you've ever had came from discomfort. The pride of accomplishment from struggling through something hard. The joy of connection from being vulnerable. The satisfaction of growth from pushing past your limits. Comfort gives you nothing worth remembering. Discomfort gives you everything worth living for. You become so skilled at avoiding pain that you've accidentally avoided life. You've optimized for ease and wonder why nothing feels meaningful. You've chosen safety and question why you feel stuck. Here's the truth. The discomfort you're avoiding isn't your enemy. It's the admission price to everything you want. A better body? It costs discomfort. A successful business? It costs discomfort. Deep relationships? They cost discomfort. Personal growth? It costs discomfort. Feeling alive? It costs discomfort. There is no meaningful life that doesn't require regularly doing things that feel uncomfortable. You can't negotiate this. You can't hack around it. The bridge between who you are and who you want to be is built entirely of things you don't want to do. Stop trying to eliminate discomfort. Start strategically choosing which discomfort you'll embrace. Stop asking, "How can I avoid this?" Start asking, "What would this make possible?" Stop running from hard things. Start running toward them, understanding that the hard thing is the only thing that will make you feel human again. Your comfort zone isn't a sanctuary. It's a slow-motion suicide. Every day you choose it over growth. You're choosing numbness over aliveness, safety over significance, existence over living. The question isn't whether you'll experience discomfort. The question is whether you'll experience the productive discomfort that builds something, or the silent discomfort of a life unlived. Conclusion. So, here we are. You've just seen 7 mirrors reflecting exactly how you've been lying to yourself. Not theories, The actual mechanisms keeping you trapped while you convinced yourself you were waiting for the right time. You've been fooling yourself into thinking tomorrow will be different while doing exactly what made today the same. But this stops now, not eventually. Now. You don't need more motivation. You need different action. You don't need more information. You need implementation. You don't need more time. You need honesty about how you're using the time you have. You don't need better circumstances. You need better choices within your current circumstances. Everything changes the moment you stop waiting for everything to change and start changing anything. One decision, one action, one uncomfortable step forward. That's all it takes to break the pattern. Before you close this video, do 3 things that prove you're different now. Hit that like button as evidence you're done negotiating with mediocrity. Comment below with the specific action you're taking today. Not what you're thinking about, but what you're doing. Share this with someone who needs to stop lying to themselves. And subscribe because we're building a community of people done with excuses and ready for results. Your life is happening right now, not tomorrow, not someday, right now. And every second you spend defending why you haven't started is a second you're choosing comfort over change. Stop defending. Start doing. Make it official. Drop this in the comments. I start now.